everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Sports Fix Podcast. It's me, Travis Hughes. Once again, just me. But good news, though, we've got Tyler scheduled to be on not next week, but the week after. So I believe that's March 23rd when he'll join us for what might be our last episode for a couple months, or at least a couple weeks. But we're, I'll have to take a break. I'm going to be graduating college here in about, in the beginning of April, mid-April, and I'm going to transition to a job and some other things. And so it might be the last one for a little bit, but we'll see if I can swing it and have it keep going as much as I can, because I really enjoy doing this. I really enjoy podcasting for you guys and doing this. This is a passion that I have, and I've really had a great time doing it. So I'm looking to continue doing this. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that this is over, but it may be something that I might have to put on hold for a little bit. But getting ahead of myself, kind of want to talk about, as we're on the topic of upcoming schedule with the podcast, next week is a big thing, big deal for the Sports Fix podcast. We'll be doing a live podcast at next Saturday at noon Mountain Time. So 2 Eastern, 1 Central, noon Mountain Time, and 11 Pacific. So we'll be doing a live stream of that. It'll just be me. I wanted to get Tyler on for that episode, but he's wrapped up in a few different things. But it's okay. I want to do a live thing so you guys can interact with me live and in person, so that you can you're scrolling through Facebook and see the Facebook Live going, and you can comment, and I can respond to you guys immediately through Facebook Live. So please come and check us out next Saturday at noon Mountain Time at 2 Eastern. Because I think it'd be something really fun that we could do, so I can interact with you guys a bit more. If you have any questions about that, comment down below, and we'll be sure to be able to respond to any questions that you have about that. But I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't think there should be any other information other than, just tune in. And that podcast, I guess, will be available to listen to or watch later. Facebook will save it as a video, and I will still be recording the audio so that I can upload it to YouTube like I normally do each week. So, all right, let's now that we're done with the housekeeping business, let's get on to sports. The whole real reason you guys are tuning in. So, this week, kind of want to start off kind of like last week, give a quick college basketball update. I don't really want to get too in-depth with it until March Madness gets going, until we get some, really interesting things. But I do want to talk about, I think it's at the top of the standings is really interesting. I think, for a lot of you that are Tennessee fans, because I'm a Tennessee fan, they've been kind of declining. They're playing Kentucky today. In fact, they'll probably be that game will be ongoing or might be over when this is posted. But I think that it's a I'll just quickly talk about the Kentucky-Tennessee matchup. Kentucky whipped us a couple weeks ago, and it was pretty depressing to watch. But I am actually pretty excited for this game because it's in Thompson Bowling Arena. I think that we have some of our players are in a bit of a slump, and I could see this as an opportunity for them to come out of that slump. It's not been the best past 2 weeks or so for us. It's been quite the up and down roller coaster. Games are way closer than they should be. Had a couple losses to some top 25 teams, and honestly, I think I got my expectations a bit too high for this team. They're a good quality team. I don't want to take that away from them. They have some good players, some good talent that's been developed over the years. But these guys are not athletes that rival Kentucky. that, Kentucky has 5 All-Americans on their team. They restock every year. They have fantastic players that are always they're always restocking with. Tennessee doesn't have those players, at least not yet. The players that we do have are guys that are 3-star, maybe if you're lucky 4-star recruits that came and have developed into good players, but they don't have that. A lot of it has to do with hard work and not natural talent that a lot of these other teams have. And so because of that, you can't have nights where you take off. You have to come with a mentality every night, every game, that you're gonna out physical, out hustle, out muscle the other team. And if you don't come with that mentality, you'll lose games. And I think this is a top 10 team. I'm not sure if this team's gonna make it to the Final Four, win a national championship. I hope they do, but I think this is a top 10 team that does have something to prove. They've got a lot of doubters lately. I think you have a lot of people who you have a chip on your shoulder now. You have people who are saying that you didn't deserve to be number one for that long, and you got to use that chip and use it as motivation. So we'll see how that game goes today. You guys probably, when you're listening to this, will already know the score of that game and see how that turns out. I think Kentucky just outwilled Tennessee to victory last time they played. There was no physicality whatsoever. So if Tennessee can bring the physicality, I think that they can stay with this Kentucky team and do well. So we'll see how things go. We'll see how that game goes. I'm trying not to get I'm not trying to get in my head about this team and think that they're the greatest team in the country, and just let things where it's a great season for us for sure. Some of the other top teams, I think Duke looks like a very different team without Zion Williamson there. They took a loss this past week. I think they have 2 losses since losing Zion Williamson. One to North Carolina, that was the game he got injured. And then this past week they lost as well to Virginia Tech. I think that's a different team. I don't think that that's a number 1 team. I don't think that that's a championship team without Zion Williamson on the court. So nothing really too crazy going on in the top 5, top 10 of college basketball right now, though. So we'll kind of have to see how things shake up and how things turn out. But I'm really looking forward to this year's tournament. I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting storylines. I think there could be a couple Cinderellas, and I think some major upsets could happen this tournament. Not that that doesn't happen every year, but this year especially, I feel like there could be something like crazy might happen. So moving on next, I want to talk about, as we talked about last week, the AFC West and NFC West, what each team in those divisions in the NFL need to do to improve. I decided that I'm not going to actually list specific players unless one just jumps out to me. It requires a lot of research on my part, and not that I don't want to do the research, but the likelihood of them signing the exact person that I name, and plus a lot of these names I'm going to mention just over and over and over again. And so there's these top 5 names that are in each position that are like really desirable in free agency, and when you have 5, you got 10 teams vying for those players, 15 teams, 20 teams even, I'm going to keep saying those same players over and over again. So I'm not going to actually name specific players, but I will talk about positions and what I feel like the strengths and weaknesses of those teams are. And so this week are the South teams. I'll start with the AFC South. Houston Texans. I'm going to start with them. That's a really interesting team. I think they've got a lot of talent. The defensive side of the ball is pretty good. The offensive side, I think, has shown sparks. Deshaun Watson, when he's healthy, has been a great quarterback for them. DeAndre Hopkins, fantastic receiver for them. I saw a statistic. I don't know if this held true to the final playoff game, but I think it was the week before the playoff game. I heard the statistic that they lost. That Hopkins had not dropped a catchable ball all season long. That is absolutely insane definitely looking to pick him up on my fantasy team next year after I heard those statistics. I mean, the guy is incredible. So, but I think outside of that, I don't think they have really strong receivers outside of that. I think that they need a receiver to pair with Hopkins to make sure that you can't just double down on Hopkins and trust single coverage on the other side to the other receivers. I think getting a good wide receiver too that can complement Hopkins would be a great addition for the Houston Texans. A name that's come up recently as well that I really want to talk about is Le'Veon Bell. Houston Texans have a decent running back group. Alfred Blue, Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller's the starter. These solid players that can put up big numbers every week. But I think the Houston Texans would be a fantastic candidate for Le'Veon Bell to go and be a part of. He's a step up for he's one of the best, if not the best, running back in the league when he's trying. Granted, when you signed him, there's a lot of drama that comes with it, and there's a lot of issues on that end. But I think that he's if he goes to a team that he wants to go to, I think that drama goes away. Le'Veon Bell wants to go to a team that is going to be competitive, is a 1 year away kind of player or kind of team that he can go to, make better instantly, and compete for Super Bowls right away. Houston Texans are one of those teams that are just missing a few pieces, a little bit here, a little bit there, and I really think that this could be a big signing for the Texans. We don't know where Le'Veon Bell's going to go. I've heard the Dolphins. I really heard all sorts of different teams that are interested in him. Of course, every team in the NFL's definitely interested in Le'Veon Bell if they can get him for the right price. I do worry that people are going to overpay for him, though. He's a great running back, and he deserves to be paid for sure. But you can't overpay for players that are going to come in and it's going to screw up your cap situation, and you're going to have a lot of players that you can't pay, and you have to release some of your better players, and you've got these cheaper players that aren't going to be as quality in other positions. And so while Le'Veon Bell improves your team at running back, you may lose some linemen or some linebackers that are big issues for you. And for example, you got J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney, and they're getting paid on the defensive end. You can't afford to bring in Le'Veon Bell for too high of a price. So that was really one of the big reasons he was holding out at Pittsburgh and why he didn't play, is because he wanted to be paid more. He wanted more out of his contract. So I really think that they should be wary when looking for Le'Veon Bell, but I think if they can get him for the right price, he's a wonderful fit for the Houston Texans. Second, moving on from in the AFC South, the Indianapolis Colts are a really interesting team. Something as I was looking around these teams, I think a lot of these teams have a lot of the teams in the NFC and AFC South. So some of them have some major issues and some major problems, but some of them actually have pretty solid teams all around. So it's hard to point out like a specific, this was a huge weakness for them, other than maybe one or two things. Indianapolis Colts is one of those teams that I really feel like offensively they've got it going. They've got a Marlon Mack and Nyheim Hines in the running back field are really great for them. I think they have good receivers. T.Y. Hilton is a fantastic receiver, make any quarterback look good. They've also got decent 2 and 3 receivers. I worry about their defense, though. Andrew Luck's a great player, but I don't know if he can carry a whole team. Andrew Luck doesn't walk out there on defense. So I really think that the Indianapolis Colts need to look in investing in a defense. I couldn't really tell you what defense where they need. I just think they kind of need it everywhere. I think that they have a solid. I think they had a top 15 defense, if I remember correctly, by just straight defensive statistics. They had a decent defense, but I think that there's a lot to improve on that defense. I think you can make some major upgrades and get a middle linebacker who can come in and be your quarterback on the defense, or you can get a corner who's going to be a lockdown corner that can lock down that entire half of the field. You don't need to upgrade the entire defense, just bring in some big pieces that can really help your team improve and take them to the next level, because the Colts are a team that has looked really good at sometimes this season, but they've also been exposed. I think the defense would help shore up a lot of those issues that they have. Like I said, I couldn't point out anything specific about them, but just getting some name brand players there on defense and picking up some good players in the draft as well, I think would be really good for them. Jacksonville Jaguars are next on the list. This is something Tyler and I kind of talked about a little bit. The Jaguars are actually a pretty solid team all the way around. They have, you could argue that they don't have the best receivers, but they have a good offensive line, a good running back, a pretty good defense. They're pretty set up in a lot of different ways. Their quarterback is just atrocious, though. They have to get a quarterback this offseason, whether it be Case Keenum from the Broncos. Wouldn't surprise me if he becomes a free agent or the Broncos look to trade him because he, bring in Joe Flacco. I think the Broncos will want to keep him as a backup, but I think you're paying Case Keenum too much to be a backup quarterback. So you have to, I think that's a possibility. I mean, he's not going to set any records or light the world on fire, but he's not Blake Bortles or Cody Kessler. So I think bringing in a quarterback, maybe Nick Foles or Teddy Bridgewater, someone who has done something in the league before. I think they bring someone like that in, their team will improve drastically. I think a clear cut number one receiver for the Jaguars would also do well. I mean, they've got some solid receivers. I look at their names, I look at their stats, and I'm not particularly impressed. I think that they could use the upgrade for sure, but the quarterback is the number one priority for them for sure. It's just not. I mean, I'm looking at the receivers: Marquise Lee, D.D. Westbrook, Dante Moncrief, DJ Chark, Keelan Cole. I think they're all solid 2 and 3 receivers, but I don't think that they are. They're not number one receivers. You need a good number one receiver. If you want to look at a number one receiver, you could talk Antonio Brown, who's also looking for a trade from the Pittsburgh Steelers. That would be I think that would be a pickup along with a quarterback. Once again, doesn't have to be a household name, just someone who can come in and do better than Blake Bortles. But that could be a pickup that puts the Jaguars, they could potentially be a Super Bowl contending team this next season, which is weirdly weird saying from a 5-11 team this year. But their issues that they have are pretty major, and if they can patch them up, that team could do a 180 very quickly. They did a 180 this past season from doing so good to so bad. Finally, my Tennessee Titans. Oh, my Tennessee Titans. Oh, gosh. Where are we even going to start with you? Tell you what, watching the Titans is one of the worst experiences of my life. Watching a Titans game. It's not fun for us Titans fans at all to watch. The team, they struggle even in their wins. Very rarely do they beat down a team or they look superior to the team. They squeak out wins barely, a little bit at a time. It always comes down to the last little bit. They beat the Patriots last year by a couple touchdowns, and we were like, oh my gosh, they've turned the corner. This is going to be incredible. I'm so excited for this team. And then they just fall flat on their face. That team, I think has a good defense. I think, well, actually, I think their defense is pretty good. Actually, I think there's not much that needs to go on with with changes on defense. I think they got some great draft picks. I think they got some good young guys and some good quality veterans that can help it all come together. And I really think that's the defense is good. What I am worried about is the offense. The offense can be a real struggle to watch sometimes. The offensive line is getting old. I think you need a couple offensive linemen to come in and be able to protect whoever quarterback it is. I mean, I give Marcus Mariota a lot of crap for what happened last year and the year before that, but I mean he's done enough, and you can't do anything behind an offensive line that's giving up 2 to 3 sacks a game. It's you just can't. You can't do it. Some people say Mariota holds on the ball a little long. I would agree with that, but I don't think it's all on him. I think that there are some offensive line issues there. I actually am a fan of them moving on from Mariota. He's a guy that's going to get you. I think he's established what kind of guy he is, what kind of quarterback he is. He can go to a team, he can get them fringe playoff, make them a fringe playoff team, and that's about it. And that's if he stays healthy. The guy has a huge issue with staying healthy that I, as a fan, am so frustrated with. He sat out for our final game of the season last year, which, if we'd won, would have put us into the playoffs. And yeah, he sat it out. And I really, from what I heard, the injury was not that bad. At least the guy didn't even try, by the sounds of it, to play. And so that was really frustrating for me. And I'm ready to move on from Marcus Mariota. Find a guy in the draft. Maybe not this year. Maybe you hold on to him 1 year, but you draft a guy and bring him in and kind of under the tutelage of Mariota, who's been in the league for a few years, knows some things, and you use that pick as kind of like your quarterback of the future. So I really think that would be a good option. I also think that they need to bring in a receiver. Corey Davis is a fantastic receiver. He made some great plays. I mean, the game-winning touchdown catch against who was that? I don't remember who that was, honestly, but they drove down the field and scored a touchdown with, I think, like 9 seconds remaining or something crazy like that. And he's proven that he can be the number one guy. To me, he's proven he can be the number one guy. So I would really like to, I really like him. But I think he needs help around him. You know, you've got Taywan Taylor there. That's really about the only player that I can think of. Oh, Tajay Sharp. Tajay Sharp is another one that, solid all-around guys. I think they need another guy, though. I think that they need a name that you've heard of before that you can give respect to. I also think that their tight end position, Delaney Walker being gone did hurt them. That's a big receiving option that can come into the game for them. So maybe I could be wrong on the receiver thing. We'll see how Delaney Walker recovers from his injury and how he moves on. But I do think that it's they need another receiving threat, and they did lose that in Delaney Walker. He was not what they needed, for sure. Or they didn't need that injury, I should say. It has a big hole out of their offense and what they're going for. So with that, that wraps up for the AFC South with me. Is there any needs that you guys see from any teams in the AFC South? Let me know in the comments what you think. If there's any position needs that I missed in the AFC South. But as we're sticking with the South, we'll be moving on to the NFC South, which I think that is going to be a very interesting division. This is a division going into the season that looked like all of these teams could potentially, if they avoided some issues that they had, could compete for a playoff spot. Even at the start of the year, the Falcons the Falcons look good to start the year. The Panthers look good to start the year. The Saints look good to start the year. The Bucks had a prolific offense, had a awesome offense. So it looked like a really good division to start the year. And then Atlanta had some defensive injuries, had some pretty key injuries actually, and their defense couldn't stop anybody at the midpoint of the season. By the end of the season, they kind of started getting their form back, and they got some of their players back from injury, and that helped them a lot. But they kind of fell off the edge. The Carolina Panthers, I think, started 6-2 or 6-1. It was really crazy how fast they started, and then fell off the face of the earth. Cam got hurt, and that was a big player in that. And I understand that losing a star quarterback is going to hurt a team, no matter how good they are everywhere else. The Saints had a good all-around year, but they had times where they looked vulnerable, and the Buccaneers just kind of fell off the face of the earth the second half of the season. They looked like they had the makings of a prolific offense that could make up for defensive issues, but it didn't turn out that way. So I'll start with the Falcons. Falcons need. I think that Matt Ryan's a good quarterback. I think they're fine there. They have great receivers. Well, I think maybe the best receiver squad in the league, with Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Calvin Ridley. I think that is a fantastic receiving core that can really make some noise. And I might be forgetting a receiver in there. I probably am. But I think that their offense is fine. The defense has some major issues. It felt like at times they couldn't stop anybody last season, and they really need to be able to do that. For that offense to be effective, they need the defense to be able to make some stops for sure. Yeah, I couldn't really point out anything specific. I just think that defense was so atrocious last season that it was bad. So, yeah, moving on to the Panthers. The Panthers need Cam healthy. That's their biggest issue, and they have to have him healthy. There are some, I really think that he can remedy a lot of issues that people have. That team has. They need they need a quarterback who can do something, because they have a lot of good pieces around him. One piece I do think they need to fill in is a true number one receiver. I think they've got quality receivers there. I've got a quality second rate group. I think they need a standout number one. Devin Funchess had a chance to be that guy. I don't think that he really stood out to be that guy. And I was really surprised when they traded Kelvin Benjamin. I think that was not last season, but the season before, and got rid of that number one receiver option. So I think that's another team that could use Antonio Brown. But once again, if the price is right, that team's got a lot of high-paid athletes on the team. So they need to be able to get the right guy for the right price. But yeah, the biggest thing is just to be able to keep Cam Newton healthy. I think if they needed to fill in some offensive line to do that, then do it. Do whatever you need to make sure that Cam stays healthy throughout a whole season. Next on the list, the New Orleans Saints. I think that's a very interesting situation. I honestly couldn't, when I was thinking about who would I put on that team, I couldn't really think of anything. I couldn't really think of an issue that team had. I think that a lot of the issues that they had came down to execution, not using their best players in situations where they needed to. I really think that they underused Alvin Kamara the second half of the season. I think that's why they struggled so much. Maybe that's just me missing things. But from what I saw, they underused him. I mean, maybe the defense schemed around him really good and they couldn't use him. But when he got the ball in his hands, he was absolutely incredible. The one thing I would think, and even this is a stretch, Drew Brees is getting old. You have Taysom Hill there, but I don't know if he's there as a gadget player or as the quarterback of the future. I'm not sure. I think that if the Saints needed positions, I think they're in a great position to, if Drew Brees can have a great year next year as well, they could definitely compete for the Super Bowl next year because they just don't have that many pieces I feel like they need to fill. They might need to look for a quarterback of the future, a true quarterback of the future. I'm not, like I said, I mean, maybe it's Taysom Hill that's already there, but he seems to be more like a gadget player, a great gadget player at that. He can do everything, but I don't know if they're going to go for him as their quarterback of the future. So I think that might be their option that they go to in the draft, is looking for a guy who maybe trading up and finding a guy who can be the guy that replaces Drew Brees and fills in just immediately for that team. Finally, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers suffered from a lot of the issues that the Falcons had. I think they had a prolific offense and a defense that couldn't stop a soul on earth. That was a huge issue. Their defense was once again a huge issue for them. Every time I tuned into a Bucs game, it was just the defense was, giving up 6-yard runs, 8-yard passes every play, and it just was, I had a Tampa Bay player on my fantasy team, and it was just so frustrating that the offense couldn't, I think I had Ryan Fitzpatrick, and so the weeks that he played, and so it was kind of good for me to have the Bucs having to pass, continue to pass, but I think there's a lot more. I think there's more to it than fantasy for sure. I think that team once again just needs to fix the defense. They've got some decent players. I think they're okay on defense. Like they have some okay players that can have standout performances by themselves. I think that they're missing maybe they need a new defensive coordinator, but they just need to revamp that defense. It just needs to get an overhaul and bring in some new guys who can actually play defense. Because the offense is fine. I think the offense by itself can win it some game. We saw that last season. They won some games off of their offense solely. So I really think that's another team just like the Falcons that just please get a defense. But with that being said, I think that wraps up all the AFC South talk. There's NFC South and all the NFL talk for this week. Really quick, I wanted to get in a comment that I missed earlier in the section, or in the podcast when I was talking about college basketball. I remember last week I asked who people thought would make a good run into the playoffs, who would, or not the playoffs, the March Madness, the NCAA championship. And Eric, thank you, Eric, for being so good at commenting and commenting on my stuff. You other guys can also comment on things if you like. Feel free to. Eric said he thinks Nevada or Houston can make a pretty deep run in the bracket. I think those are actually, Nevada doesn't shock me too much because Nevada's kind of, I think that they are a trendy deep run pick that isn't a number one seed. I think Houston's a really interesting one that I don't really feel like they've played anyone. They've played one top 25 team, I believe, earlier in the season, but they have, I think they only have one loss, maybe 2 losses on the season. But it's hard for any team to win that many games in a season. Period. Doesn't matter what league you're in, what athletes you have on the team. It's hard for a team to win that many games in a season without being talented. So I think Houston's legit. I think that's a team that could potentially be, probably a 4 seed, 5 seed, makes it into the Elite 8. I don't see them going much farther than that. I actually, probably if I were to pick right now, I'd probably have them going out in the Sweet 16. But I think Houston could be one of those. I wouldn't call it quite a Cinderella because they are a 4 or 5 seed team most likely, maybe a 6 seed. But so I wouldn't call them a Cinderella, but I think that they are an underrated team that could make some pretty big noise in the tournament this year. But we'll have to see. Tournament starts. I mean, it's March, guys. It's March. See, March 2nd today. So, yeah, it's March. March is here. Tournament starts soon. I think the last week the regular season is next week. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I think that's the last week of the regular season in college basketball, and I am psyched for the tournament this year. It's the best sporting event in all of sports. Maybe the World Cup. But I mean, those first two rounds, the round of 64, the round of 32, there's always a basketball game on. It's so fun to that first week to just be able to turn the TV on and watch whatever basketball game is going on right now and just have fun with it. And crazy stuff happens during March. I've seen some of the craziest comebacks. I've seen the craziest endings to games I've ever seen in my life in March and in the tournament. So best of luck to your teams out there, whoever they may be. Best of luck to them, and hope that they can get they can all get tournament runs. I mean, they obviously all can't, but I wish luck to all of your teams, I guess. And best of luck to you in your brackets, as we'll be filling those out in probably 2 weeks or so. So I think that's I think we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. Once again, I really appreciate everything you guys do, and I really love doing this. And so if there's things that you'd like me to do differently or things that you feel like I should do more of, let me know, because I want to cater this to you guys, so you guys will enjoy it more and listen more and would share it with your friends even. So thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you next week.